I'd like to bring the meeting to order of the Wilmington City Council. I'd like to welcome all those that have come here tonight and all those who are watching us at home. Thank you for taking an interest in your government. This time, I'd like to introduce Mario Jeter, Associate Pastor of Sanctuary of Wilmington, for the invocation, and ask that everyone stand and remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Jeter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members and everyone gathered tonight. Let's share in a word of prayer. God, we thank you for this time of Thanksgiving that we've been able to experience, Father, to look back on all that you've done for us, God, and give thanks and take inventory of your grace and your mercy and your provision, God. God, it's with a hope and expectation that we look forward to the rest of this year and the new year as this council has gathered together to be your eyes, your ears, your hands, and your feet to carry out the business of this great city, God. God, I thank you that you've entrusted them. I ask that you would keep their minds and their hearts and their bodies yielded unto you, Father. God, continue to move through them and in spite of them, God. We ask that your presence be in this place as we continue to transform every inch of this city from battlegrounds to playgrounds, God, so that our families and our children and our children's children will be able to experience your goodness. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I'd like to recognize also Councilmember-elect David Joyner, who's also with us this evening. Welcome, David. I know you were looking forward to sitting up here with us at our next meeting. Also, I'd like to recognize two council members that will be leaving us. This will be their last official meeting tonight. Councilmember Neil Anderson, who's been on the City Council for 12 years, and Mayor Pro Tem Margaret Haynes has been here for 13 years. And I just want to say on behalf of the city and the council, I want to thank you for your public service to this great community. We've done a tremendous amount of work together over the years, some of it not easy, but we've always enjoyed it. And we've enjoyed it, the spirited debates that we've had up here, but you have helped really move this community forward. I know a lot of the initiatives, especially with the revitalization efforts with downtown, and the trails and the parks and all of the investment that we have made over the years, going back now for over a decade, have been transformational. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your dedication to this community. I know it's not easy at times to be in public service, but you have done it in an outstanding way. We've dealt with hurricanes, pandemics, social unrest, and we continue to move this community forward. And it's considered one of the best cities in this country for that reason, for the public servants that sit up here and serve this community and serve all of us every single day. So just want to say thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll get started with the official business of the city. Our first item of business is the consent agenda, items 1 through 6. Are there any items any council member would like to hear separately? If not, what are the wishes of this council? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. There are no public speakers that have signed up to speak this evening, so we'll go right into our public hearings. Item PH1 is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair the dwelling at 515 Orange Street as unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Cottle. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Brian Renner, our Chief Code Enforcement Officer, will overview this item.
Evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. This evening we're going to talk about 515 Orange Street. This is a almost a 2,600 square foot single-family home. It's two-story. It is in the local historic district. It was built approximately 1895. The house is vacant. This lot does have, I'll say, a carriage house in the back, but that's not included in this case. The owners of this property are William F. Gage, Robert H. Gage, and Lawrence E. Gage. This is the view from Orange Street. So we started this case back in September of 2015. It came from a neighbor complaint. There is also an ongoing historic preservation case, which is called demolition by neglect, and that's been going on for about as long. That order to repair for the demolition by neglect was issued in 2017, and they were given an extension until 2020. So I just want to show that we've had multiple different cases running at the same time. We took this to Administrative Housing Code hearing in January of 2021. That was continued at the request of Mr. Gage to February of 2021, and he did attend that hearing. At that time, an order was issued, which expired in November of 2021. So this is based on the 2020 tax value. The building was $122,200. Our estimated cost of repair at that time was $49,812, which put us at 41%, which made this building deteriorated by the city's minimum housing code. I did note the 2023 tax values there. It did increase, but it does not change the fact that this building is still deteriorated. These are the sections of the minimum housing code that were outlined in that findings of fact, which was attached within this item. And this is the front of the house. So as you may know, we have been in contact with the family. We've been speaking with Robert Gage for several years now about trying to get this property repaired. We have recently been in contact with William Gage, one of the other owners. It's my understanding right now that the roof currently does have a COA to be repaired, and they do have a COA in process for front porch repairs. They're still waiting on some items they need to turn in. So this process has motivated some efforts to repair. So as we look at this, we're hopeful to see this building repaired within a reasonable time frame. But now we'll talk about the condition of the house. So this is the front of the house. We have a lot of, you can see up in the soffit, we have holes in the soffit, holes in the front porch floor, a lot of peeling paint. Here's just some examples of that. A lot of rotten windowsills. There's a rotten handrail on the rear side of the building. On the inside of the building, we do have a lot of water intrusion. The metal roof is pretty heavily deteriorated, especially on one side of the building. So we do have some water coming in. Here we see that black substance from that. As we go in, we have peeling paint in the walls, cracking plaster. That would be the front door. So on this side of the house, we have a lot more water intrusion issues. We can see damage on the floors and water that's coming down. This is still on the first floor. And this is above that floor. On the second floor, we see, you can actually see the holes in the roof there that are visible from the inside, and then the water damage that's been caused by years of the roof leaking. Some damaged windowsills and some damaged floor. Sorry about that. That's a different property. I forgot to remove those. So what we're looking at in this case is 180 days for them to repair this building to a habitable standard. As I've said, we've been in contact with the family on and off since 2015. About getting this repaired, and I'm here if there's any questions for this case.
Are there any questions? Yes, sir, Ms. Anderson.
This is one of the more, historic looking homes that I recall seeing in a while. So as they try to bring it back up to speed, that's got to be somewhat of a hindrance. Don't they have to meet certain thresholds, or they don't? That's just to keep if they want historic tax credits. Explain that to me. How does that impact them, the historic nature of the home?
The historic nature of the property impacts them primarily on the exterior of the building. They'll need to get a certificate of appropriateness to do exterior repairs. and they may need to go before the commission depending on the extent of those repairs. Based on my conversation with the historic preservation planner with the city, most of what they're trying to do will not require commission approval. It can be done by an administrative bypass. So it sounds like that they're on the way of getting the approvals to do all of the exterior repairs. The inside, I don't think there's any limitation on what they can do on the inside.
Your estimate of $40-some thousand, is that old?
That was done in.
Because it looks like $200,000 to me, more,
Yeah.
if that, yeah.
That was done back in 2020, and it's on an assessment of doing minimum repairs to make it habitable. It's not always taking into consideration the historic nature of the building, needing to hire special carpenters to do the outside, having to meet the wood window standards. This is just about making it habitable.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rivenbark?
You know, we received I did, and I'm sure everybody else did, an email from Mr. Gage, and a man that could write such an eloquent appeal got my attention. But for the same people to have been on notice since 2015 and consistently, I don't know any other word except ignored their responsibility, and to come here tonight, I will certainly put a lot of weight in what your recommendation is, but this doesn't sit well with me. They've had every opportunity, and they have the means. We see a lot of people that come up here that want to do the right thing, want to repair, and they don't have the means, and we try everything we can to help them get that. These people have the means to do it, and they've just chosen to let this property continue to be like it is. And it's not just the property, it's the people that live around it that suffer equally. So those are my comments.
Spears?
Brian, isn't the simplest thing that can be done is just to close it up?
So the building is secured. It's secured.
It's secure now.
It is
Did we
secured
do
now.
it or did they do it?
It's been locked. The building has been locked. They have secured the building. So what this ordinance does, it allows us to maintain it as secured, so they can't say move somebody in there, or if we find the door kicked in, then we can secure that door without having to go through a notification process.
So securing the property doesn't mean boarding the windows.
It does not necessarily mean boarding the windows, no. Only if they're open. We try not to board windows for a variety of reasons, but if we need to, we will.
Okay. And I'm gonna ask these questions just for clarification purposes. So I guess what is the standard for what we consider to be dilapidated or beyond repair? I know you showed some like the peeling paint, the window seals and things like that. And I mean, I understand the significance of that. It doesn't look good, but is it, it's a part of what's the deterioration of a home if you're not there, or I don't know if you just don't take the effort to repair it. But it doesn't mean if I have a window sill in my home that's a little not up to par, you come board me up in my home?
No, the process is rather thorough when we look at these things. There's an entire section of the city code that, as I said, is outlined that has a lot of items in it. In order for us to call something unfit for human habitation, it needs to meet a few standards. The first being one of, I think it's 9 major violations that are pretty severe. Typically you see things like collapsing roofs, collapsing floor systems, things like that. Then when we go into the subsections, we start talking about all the little things. And we need to have several of those little things in order to proceed with a case. Some of those things might be peeling paint on the windowsills, because what that does is it causes the windowsill to rot, and then you have water intrusion inside the building and everything that comes with that damage. So peeling paint is one of many potential issues. From a historic preservation standpoint, especially this being local historic, it's a little bit higher. But we're not necessarily talking about that tonight.
Gotcha.
But yes, the peeling paint can be an issue, but it's not gonna cause us to necessarily move forward with the case.
Okay. Like I said, that was just for clarification purposes, you know, you got it in the slide, so
Yeah.
I don't want people at home to think if their paint is peeling, we're coming for them. I hope not.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. This time I will open the public hearing and ask, oh, no, I'm sorry. This time I will recognize the property owner. If the property owner is here in the building. Okay. Seeing that the property owner is not here, I will now open up the public hearing, ask if anyone in the public wishes to speak on item PH1, if they'll please come forward. Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary? Okay. Any further questions from council? Okay. I will now close public hearing and ask for the wishes of council in respect to item PH1. We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading on this item? We have a motion to approve. Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to item PH2, which is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair the dwelling at 126 Brookwood Avenue as unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. And again, I will recognize our manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll ask Mr. Renner to come forward for an encore performance on this one.
Okay.
The next property we're going to talk about tonight is 126 Brookwood Avenue. This is another deteriorated property we have, as you'll see in the photos. They're not going to be maybe as severe as things that we've seen in the past, so just keep that in mind. You might see some peeling paint here and there. This property is about 2,400 square feet. It is a single-family home. It does have an accessory structure that is included within this case. The house was built in about 1930, and that accessory structure was built in about 1977. This property is vacant and has been vacant for some time. The owners of this property are the heirs of Margaret Smith Collier. Now, this is the view from Brookwood Avenue and from Grady Avenue, so this lot sits on a corner. We started this case back in 2019 from a neighbor complaint. We took it to Administrative Housing Code hearing in January 2021. Margaret Collier had not passed. She was alive at that time, so she did attend that hearing. We did have an order to repair issue that expired in September of 2021. At that hearing, the tax value of those buildings was $285,000. Our estimated cost to repair at that time was $18,860, which is deteriorated by the city's minimum housing code. It's not 41%. That was, again, another error on my fault. This is the section of the minimum housing code that's outlined within that findings of fact. So this is the view, again, from Brookwood Avenue. And just for correction, it's 7%, and this is deteriorated, again, by the city's minimum housing code. Most of the damage that we see, a major part of it's on the front porch. We can see some rot and decay there. And there's more here as we go around the wraparound front porch. This is a view, again, from the street. We do have some damage to the roof and damage to the soffit. This is a side entrance, missing a handrail. We see some more peeling paint, some other issues here. On the inside of the building, most of the issues on the inside of the building are in the center of the house, and they kind of go up the stairs. There's definitely some humidity, possible water intrusion issues. We can see here damage to the ceiling and a lot of discoloration in this room. We have peeling paint in the ceilings. Some of the plaster is starting to collapse in the bathroom. Obstructed egress here, and here in the kitchen we have some more damage to the wall. And that's where we saw that exterior damage from the water coming in there. This is a stairwell goes up. We can see a lot of discoloration. This is likely from humidity building up inside the house. As I said, it's been vacant and closed for a long time. So we get some of this discoloration that happens. And there is a broken window up in the front of the house that is boarded. This is the accessory structure. On this, we have some broken windows. There's a lot more issues with the roof. Here's some examples of that on this accessory structure. And there, and I've actually seen squirrels run in and out of that holes, and I'm sure some of the neighbors can tell you about some of the wildlife they've seen coming in and out of this house based on its condition and the holes that are in it. So what we're looking at on this is, again, the authority to keep the building secured. It has been secured. We haven't had any issues with that, but we want to make sure we maintain that. And another 180 days. With this property, as you saw, it was heirs of Margaret Collier Smith. Ms. Collier died during the course of our case, and we went through extensive efforts to find her next of kin, which were actually distant cousins. There's upwards of 20 of them that we were able to make contact with, and they have one family member who's kind of taken the lead on that, and they have an attorney, and her estate in Asheville right now, her caretaker also has an attorney. So right now we're kind of in this probate process where we're waiting on the court to appoint an executor of the estate so that something can be done with the house. The reason we're moving forward with this case now is for a few reasons. One, because the property has been sitting vacant for a long time, and the efforts of the attorneys seem to be motivated by our efforts over here in Wilmington. So as we move forward with these cases, it tends to put pressure for resolution, because as you see within this ordinance, we do get a lot of authority to take action on this house should they not do anything. And again, also, if nothing is done with this house, it also opens us up to consider repairs to the house if necessary. So I'm here if there's any questions, but my recommendation is 180 days, which would allow for time for the court to appoint an executor, somebody to sell it, and somebody to begin work on the house.
Mr. Waddell?
These partition proceedings take a while. I mean, 180 days probably will not be enough time. It sounds like they've already identified their attorney, is what you said, and are working towards naming an executor and going through the motions. Have you been in contact with their attorney?
I've been in contact with their attorneys, yes. I spoke with their attorney in Asheville today, who is a fairly well-known estate attorney in Asheville. And they had filed a motion with the court on November 9th to appoint an executor. There is more or less what would be called a holographic will that they have. So they're in the process. Everybody's in agreement of what to do with the estate. They just need to move forward with it. And it's not just this property. There's other properties in Buncombe County that they're dealing with as well.
And they indicated that at 180 days, they indicated to you that this would be helpful for them to move their process forward for their clients.
They had no objection to us moving forward this process. I don't know if they would consider it helpful or not, but it does show the court that the city of Wilmington's taking this case seriously.
Realistically, we wouldn't have a bulldozer out there on the 181st day.
We could not bulldoze this house without coming back before council. This is only a repair ordinance. So what that means is it did not reach our demolition threshold and cost of repair. As I said, it's only, I think 7 or 8%.
Okay.
We got to be at 50 to consider demolition. So what this ordinance does, aside from us keeping it secure and motivating action, it does position us to look at stabilizing repairs after that period of time should nothing be done.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
I hate to pick on you on these amounts, but 18,000's what? I mean, the roof alone, they need a new roof on both, right?
I would say the roof
I mean,
on
the
this
water's
one-
just coming, I don't know, it just seems, I don't know if I'm just lately been doing some home improvements and know what things cost these days, but it seems light. I don't know.
Yeah.
Inflation has gone nuts, so.
This was a 2020 assessment, pre-COVID. And then, as I've said, these estimates tend to be
Bare
on the
minimums.
small side, on the smaller side, generally because there's this expectation that maybe a homeowner can do some of the repairs themselves and not necessarily have to contract out. So we don't necessarily take labor into consideration. We're talking mostly materials. But again, 2020 estimate, if we did it now, it would probably be higher.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ravenbark?
A lot like the one before, we don't want the thing to go away. And this particular house, the bones on this house are pretty good. So it's a lot of, it looks bad, and it is bad, but, this is not something that I would ever stood up here and raise my hand to bulldoze it. If it can be fixed, somebody can buy that and fix it. when we have houses like this that are subject to the elements with a big hole in the roof, is it ever an option to go out and tarp it like so many people do? I mean, it's not going to cure the problem that's already there, but it would keep it from getting worse.
That's something that I would call an improvement or an action that we could take underneath the repair order. So following that 180 days, that's definitely something we can look at.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Brian. At this time, I'd like to recognize the property owner. Is the property owner here, or a member of the property owner's family or estate? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to go open the public hearing and ask if anybody in the public wishes to speak on item PH2.
Hi, my name is Cece Snow, and I live at 122 Brookwood Avenue. I share a property line with the Collier House. Brookwood is a neighborhood that is registered in the National Register of Historic Places. With homes that were built in the 1920s and 30s, the neighborhood reflects Wilmington's transitions to cars with garages and driveways. Many of the homes in Brookwood are now 100 years old or are nearing the century mark. Many of our homes are brick bungalows built in the craftsman style with front and back porches for sitting, a sidewalk on either side of each street, and mature shrubs and trees within approximately 1.5 miles of Wilmington City Hall, where we sit tonight. I bought my home over 32 years ago. The Colliers had already owned their property at 126 for approximately 3 years. They bought it, I think, around 1988. They did not live in it then, and they never did live in it. They lived in a house also on Brookwood, a few houses away, and they bought 126 in hopes that Dr. Collier's mother would move in. She never did. The Colliers moved furniture and various other items into the house for storage and left it that way for the next 30-plus years. They rented the garage apartment for less than 2 years after I moved into my house, but that too became permanently vacant about 30 years ago. My children grew up calling this the scary house, and that too was 25 or 30 years ago. The Collier home has the most inviting front porch in all of Brookwood. And the house, to this day, the house continues to reflect the spirit of our 1920s homes in spite of its current condition. Today, the Collier porch, as you saw, has holes in the ceiling, and the beautiful but simple exterior trim is rotting. There are holes on the outside of the house where cats and rats go in and out. There was a fascia board with a hole in it that faced my backyard. My family, with a neighbor, got a ladder and put another board on top of the rotted one so that we could enjoy my backyard without watching squirrels go in and out of what is supposed to be a rental property at 126. When Hurricane Florence blew through Wilmington 5 years ago, the Colliers lost a window in their second-floor bedroom. I pleaded with a neighbor to fix this window. Nearly 2 years after Florence, he was finally able to get permission from the Colliers to nail a piece of plywood over this window. If what appears to be black mold in the house hadn't started before that, it certainly started then. Even in its current condition, there are so many people who would like to buy this house. My hope is that a family with money and energy can fix it up to enjoy the wide-covered porch, the large backyard, the mature camellias, and the character of this 1920s house, which at one time was loved and well cared for. Beyond my immediate frustration with the Colliers for having allowed their house to deteriorate to this extent is my concern that this house devalues my own property. I have concerns of rodent and roach infestations. More than these concerns, however, is my fear that the house will have to be demolished at some point, allowing for the construction of a home that will not fit into the character of our historic neighborhood. I am begging the Collier heirs and the city of Wilmington to find a solution that does not involve allowing this property to continue to deteriorate such that there is no other option than to tear it down. I appreciate your listening. I appreciate Kevin very much for his work and conscientiousness. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, that's Brian. I know. It's kind of hard to get me off the brain. I get it.
Anybody else?
It happens when I take my hair down.
Okay. Madam Clerk, have you received any additional commentary? Any further questions from City Council? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you for your comments. I am vaguely, somewhat, have some friends that live over there in Brookwood, and it's a wonderful neighborhood. And I think we are, tonight, we're very far from the idea of demolishing the house, so I want you to not worry about that. What we would do here is try to encourage the repairs to the house, and you can hear Brian Renner talking about dealing with the attorneys and trying to get an executor and all of that. So the city's working diligently to try to save properties, but at the same time to make them safe and make them not a distraction and a nuisance to any neighbors. But I just wanted to reassure you that we are way, way, way away from even the concept of tearing the house down.
All right, anybody else? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council. We have a motion approved by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is our ordinances. Item 01 is an ordinance reducing the speed limit from 35 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour along Country Club Road between Wrightsville Avenue and Oleander Drive. This time I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle. Thank
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dennis Vilkenowitz, who is the city traffic engineer, will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. For your consideration is an ordinance to reduce the speed limit from 35 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour on Country Club Road between Wrightsville Avenue and Oleander Drive. 25-mile-an-hour speed limit along this portion of Country Club Road would provide a consistent speed limit along the entirety of the continuous route from Market Street to the end of Country Club Road south of Oleander Drive. The subject portion of Country Club Road provides access exclusively to residential land uses, and the residents of this portion of Country Club Road have demonstrated consensus to reduce the speed limit from 35 to 25 by submitting the attached petition. Passage of the ordinance is recommended.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Okay. What are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Rivenbark, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item 02A, which is an ordinance making supplemental appropriations in the amount of $2,988,100 from developers' contributions capital balances NNP 4 Cape Fear River LLC and the Proximity Watermark LLC to the Streets and Sidewalks Capital Projects Fund for the installation of a roundabout and associated road improvements at the intersection of Independence Boulevard and River Road and pedestrian improvements on Independence Boulevard. And you can see the budget impact there of $1,517,900 of developers' contributions toward that capital balance. And then we have the accompanying resolution, which would be item 02B, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into an agreement with NNP 4 Cape Fear River LLC and the Proximity Watermark LLC for the installation of a roundabout and associated roadway improvements at the intersection of Independence Boulevard and River Road with pedestrian improvements on Independence Boulevard. This time I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David Cowell, our Director of Engineering, will overview both of these items for us.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to present the following items for improvements at the intersection of Independence Boulevard and River Road. An ordinance making a supplemental appropriation and a resolution authorizing a cost-sharing agreement. We appreciate the cooperation of the River Lights and Proximity Watermark developers to accelerate the construction of the long-term roundabout solution. Under the terms of a cost-sharing agreement, the city will contribute 30% of the roundabout costs and 100% of the Independence Boulevard pedestrian improvements. The total estimated cost of the city is approximately $1.5 million. The design and construction will be done as part of the Proximity Watermark development. The improvements include a single-lane roundabout with a dedicated free-flow right turn lane for the northbound River Road traffic. Also, the sidewalk from River's Edge will be extended along Independence Boulevard to River Road. This will provide significant safety enhancements with lower speeds and elimination of T-bone crashes. This will also be a meaningful first step towards much-needed relief for traffic congestion. There's been some confusion among residents in the area about whether a traffic signal would be a better option. 3 independent traffic engineering studies have confirmed that a roundabout provides the optimum long-term solution. A traffic signal would function at a service level D in 2045. These studies were commissioned by River Lights, Watermark, and the City of Wilmington. A community meeting was held at River Lights on August 9th, 2023 to present the findings. On September 5th, 2023, a presentation was given to City Council with traffic modeling animations of the roundabout versus the traffic signal alternatives. Educational videos were also shared which explain the operation and benefits of roundabouts. As the Director of Engineering, it's my recommendation that Council approve the items as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? On the design of the roundabout, that is being designed for 2 lanes. I know that we're going to be doing 1 to begin with, but it's my understanding that they have designed it so that if we wanted, as traffic increases in that particular area, we wanted to increase that capacity and tie it in with the Independence Boulevard expansion, we can do so.
This roundabout is being designed to accommodate the future widening of Independence Boulevard.
Okay.
So yes.
So 2 lanes.
Yes, sir.
Enough where I can get 2 cars there. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And the 3 independent studies with by 3 different engineering groups.
3 different engineering companies, all independent and done for different purposes. The final one was done by it was commissioned by the City of Wilmington with Michael Baker.
And the queuing of those intersections based on the roundabout, all 3 of them came to the same conclusion?
They all recommended the roundabout as the solution, as the best solution. The city's study projected to the year 2045, and that analysis shows that the traffic signal will operate at a service level D, as I mentioned, which is not
so,
good.
Yeah, I understand. So the roundabout that is currently in River Lights, the big one there, is it about the same size as that one?
That is a good question. I'm not certain the size of that roundabout.
Okay. All right. Mr. Barnett?
I think you alluded to it, but I received a phone call today, and one of the questions that was raised to me was, with this roundabout, are we preparing for widening Independence, like 4 lanes and stuff like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this includes that future.
It is is being built to accommodate the future widening of Independence Boulevard. So we're not building as though that widened cross-section for Independence Boulevard exists today,
Right.
but it will accommodate that in the future. The diameter of the roundabout is a little bit larger, and it's been shifted to the north to accommodate that.
Okay. Thank you.
Tony, it's my understanding of that on the improvements that have been generated here between the two development groups in the city, that 70% of this is being picked up by the developers, 30% by the city. Is that correct?
70% of the construction costs associated with the roadway, 100% of the pedestrian improvements of the cities, but yes, sir. 70.
Which we would have had to do anyway. That's why I guess that we're including them
yes, sir.
participants in this. And then the River Lights portion, can someone give me an idea as to the percentage that they're picking up of the 70%?
Dave, I think, may have that number.
I do.
Because in my
River-
opinion, they should be picking up more of that cost, because I know that their impacts are done, I know they're in the contract that as they build out, they make those improvements, but they have a lag time in making that improvement, so they're
That's
coming
right.
forward. So what is the percentage?
The River Lights percentage is 56% of the estimated cost of the roundabout, up to a maximum of a $1,176,100.
Okay,
Watermark is 14%.
okay.
And yes, you're right. River Lights has an obligation to improve this intersection at some point in the future, but this agreement allows the acceleration of this so that it can be done in about a year to a year and a half's time.
Well, I appreciate the working relationship with the two groups, especially the one that didn't have to put in the improvement to begin with, but them hopefully trying to be good neighbors to their community and to the city. I appreciate them moving forward to help us acceleration. Obviously, the bigger portion of this is going to be the future expansion of Independence, which is a discussion that this council will be having, I would imagine, very shortly.
Yes.
In regards to the traffic impacts that are happening there.
Yes, sir. I've been very impressed with the developers and their cooperation. It's been a very pleasant
It's good to hear.
negotiation.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr. Waddell?
Just some clarification with the regards to up to the maximum amounts that are referenced. Should it go over, do those percentages get augmented, or does that fall solely on the city?
That is still under negotiation. I'll defer to the city attorney.
We're still hammering out all the terms of the contract. If it goes over that, we'll have to go back and renegotiate, but that is what that is not what we're anticipating. We would hope that we'd be able to continue at the same percentages for any overages. We're just setting these limits for right now, and then we would have to renegotiate because the city would need to come back to council for more funding at that point as well.
And these quotes are fairly recent, so it's not like these are, a couple of years old. These are within the last few months.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Post-COVID.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? On the design aspect, and maybe you can tell me or Tony can tell me, do you know where we are in the process once we give you the authorization this evening, or has there been a preliminary evaluation and a design done? Not preliminary, not taking into consideration that it's a fact.
Yes, sir. It's, the design has been advanced to a conceptual level to allow the cost estimating and the negotiations to proceed to this point. With this approval, the engineer for the watermark development will be able to proceed with finalizing the design, and it'll be submitted through the TRC process for the city, and that's how it will be reviewed.
Okay. Do we have some kind of a time frame?
It would probably be, I don't control the developer's timeline. I think they are trying to move fast. It'll probably be a year to a year and a half after the TRC approval is granted. And we've made commitments to provide our review comments quickly on this roundabout.
Okay. Very good. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take the ordinance we'll start off with the ordinance. What are the wishes of council in respect to item O2A, which I have already read into the record? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Anderson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Haynes. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Let's go back now to item O2B, which is a resolution which I've already read into the record. What are the wishes of council in respect to the resolution? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Barnett, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business. Yes, got to get to work. Our next item of business, which is item O3A, which is an ordinance making appropriations of $1,398,511 to the Parks and Recreation Capital Projects Fund for the Encino Sports Complex. And then item O3B is the resolution authorizing a change order to T.A. Loving Company Incorporated for the Encino Sports Complex in the amount of $1,398,511. This time I'd like to recognize our manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matt Hart, our senior project manager, will overview these items for us.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm here tonight to present a consideration, and it's a related ordinance on the authorization of additional appropriation of $1,398,511. The Encino Sports Complex, the additional appropriation is needed for the construction contract change order TA 11. On September 18th, 2023, the city staff presented to the city council that the Encino Sports Complex has encountered grading challenges that will require landfill waste removal and additional soil import to achieve the soil cover depth required by NCDEQ. Approval of this ordinance and related resolution will allow the contractor to meet the spring 2024 sod installation period without delay. Construction of the complex started in January 2023 and is now approximately 50% complete. We're now looking at a substantial completion date of fall of 2024. In order to execute this contract change order, an ordinance making the supplemental appropriation to the Parks and Recreation Capital Projects Fund for the Encino Sports Complex is necessary. The additional funding comes from the Riverfront Park Bond Project Contingency Funds, with the remaining balance funded by debt capacity within Debt Service Fund, as well as interest earnings. I'd also like to mention we do have two other issues that we're still working through, which is engineered pile foundations for other elements on the site, and also revising landscaping and irrigation to meet the council needs. Passage of this attached ordinance and resolution is recommended. Any questions?
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Robert, go ahead.
The other issues that you were working through, would that be in addition financially over and above what we're doing here tonight?
Yes, we have identified funds within our debt capacity, sir.
Say that again?
We have identified the funds needed within our debt capacity.
You have identified them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. And could you tell me one more time what those other issues are?
So currently, when we start encountering waste at a shallower depth, we realized that the light pole foundations were just a standard detail, and they were actually required engineered foundations. So we did a geotechnical study. We got that information back 2 weeks ago. Now it's with our structural engineer, and we are engineering structural foundations to make sure we have adequate, structural stable, light pole foundations for site lighting around the entrance, parking lots, as well as some of the common areas.
at this point, we don't have a number.
At this point, I feel like we're actually doing a lot better than what we thought we were doing before.
That's pretty open-ended.
I know that's what you want to hear, sir.
Well, you
so
know,
with
not really. I don't want to hear any of it, to tell you the truth. But here we are with
Councilmember Rivenbark, one of the reasons we brought this in two parts was it was important for us to meet the growing season for the grasses. And so we needed to get this item before you so we could continue with the fill and then get to meet the growing season.
I'm just looking for the light at the end of the tunnel, Tony. You know, it just goes on and on. Every project we do, it just goes on. I don't even know why we do estimates anymore. Just hand them the damn checkbook and just say, write what you need.
Well, unfortunately, sir, this was a discovery item. It really was. So on September 18th, we gave a presentation delivering what we thought we might see, and that was approximately $3 million of additional money to complete the project. And currently, I'm turning over every piece of trash, literally, look at every opportunity to reduce that number.
Okay. Mr. Barnett?
Thank you for finding that, because I remember asking yesterday, was there anything else that we might have missed? And I guess I'll ask that again. And I guess I'm hearing the city manager say that you're giving it to us in sections. So, and this is done because of grass. It's time to plant. Okay. All right.
It's also schedule integrity. We want to make sure we keep a schedule for the Hammerheads to be able to play by August 2024.
Sure.
So our current strategy is to make sure they have playing fields, the existing north fields and the synthetic field, they can actually have play time while we let the grass and sod grow in period happen on the four south fields.
Okay. All right. I appreciate your work.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. What are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion made by Councilmember Barnett, seconded by Councilmember Reinbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? We have a motion to approve. Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Now let's go to item 03B, which is the resolution. What are the wishes of council in respect to item 03B, which I've already read into the record? Motion made by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Waddell. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item RP1, which is Council's Appointments Committee for boards and commissions, and Councilmember Rivenbark, who is the chairman of that committee, will give us a report at this time. Mr. Rivenbark.
Thank you, Mayor Sappho. The Appointments Committee is made up of myself as the chair, Councilmember Neil Anderson, Councilmember Luke Waddell. We met on November the 6th of this year and offer up the following for your consideration. For the Commission on African American History, we would reappoint Mr. Willie Black with a term to expire 11/18/26. The Legion Stadium Commission, we recommend appointing David Novotny with a term to expire 11/21/2026. The Loan Review Board, we recommend appointing Mike Moran, who is a CPA, and we have, I think the kudos go to Neil and Luke for Luke. Finding that gentleman, it's something we've been sorely missing. His term would expire 5/15/2024, and appoint Kathy Heslin as an at-large alternate. Encino Sports Park User Group Advisory Committee, appoint Joel Smith to represent the Convention Visitors Bureau with a term to expire October 17, 2024. The New Hanover County / City of Wilmington Community Relations Advisory Committee, appoint Antravon Tate, better known as Trey Tate, representing the Civil Rights category with a term to expire 9/20/2026. And on the Parks and Recreation Board, we would recommend reappointing Ms. Ingrid Corby with a term to expire 12/7/2026. And that's, I offer those up for your consideration. I would move that slate.
Okay, we have a motion approved by Councilmember Ravenmark, second by Councilmember Waddell. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously.
While I've got the floor, I would just encourage anybody listening or anybody here, if you have a yearn to take part in city government, we have numerous boards and commissions, all important. You can go on the city's website to see what the boards and commissions are. It's easy to apply. Just fill out the application. It'll go directly to Ms. Penny Sidbury's office and the clerk's office, and you will certainly be given every consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is item RP1A, which is a resolution dissolving the Vision 2020 Oversight Committee. At this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Ravenmark again, who is the chairman of the Council's Appointments Committee.
Penny,
Oh, I would do it. Tony? Anthony?
Just to give you some background on this item, we, many years ago, started the Vision 2020 Committee to oversee the efforts of the staff with regard to the Vision 2020 plan. Some 3 or 4 years ago, we determined that we had completed well over 90% of the items in that particular plan, and the ones that remained were either outdated or not able to be accomplished. We have not sent, the committee has not met since that time, and we now have a new plan coming forward which will encompass a larger area than just the immediate downtown, and we think will be able to take the place of the Vision 2020 plan. Consequently, we have recommended to council that this particular advisory committee be disbanded.
Okay, very good. All right, we have a motion to approve by Councilmember Haynes, Mayor Pro Tem Haynes, seconded by Councilmember Waddell. Discussion, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item RP2, which is Council's Naming Facilities Committee. And this time, I'd like to recognize Councilmember Clifford Barnett, Sr., who is the chairman of that Council's Naming Facilities Committee. Mr. Barnett?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. The Naming Committee met, and at our last meeting, we had a large discussion about naming the building, and so we asked staff to give us some pictures of what the marquee may look like, and I think they've done that. We've got those in our hands. So I think the only item we have to do today is vote on the 2 choices that we have before us. Yeah. And my understanding is that we're not limited to the graphics that we have before us. That's just an example. But basically what we need to do tonight is decide on whether or not we're going to use Skyline as the name of the building or City Plaza.
Go ahead, Ms. Davis.
Well, all this is repetitive, I think, for most of us, the ones who are here. I'll just kind of reiterate. I guess we all probably going to get our, say something. So I'll go first. I think a couple great names. I think Charlie mentioned Gateway. That's not another one that, maybe that's the project across the street, and we ought to leave that with that project versus that building. But it's certainly one that we could consider. Plaza, I'm just definition-wise doesn't fit for me because it's, I think I'm looking at definition public square, marketplace, similar open space. Definition 2 is a shopping center, but I know that's not what we're talking about. But that's just me. I think the other part of it is, certainly coming from the west, our skyline has always been, that is where you see our skyline, and it's been the Murchison building and the steeples of our city. And I think now that's changed with the Water Street building, and now with this, and this is with what's happening with office space, it's most likely be the tallest building that'll be in the downtown area in our lifetime. And this, I think Skyline's very appropriate. I know we're not here to pick the what do we call this, the graphics or what have you, but I do like the first one that has, I don't know, the flow to it. It kind of mimics the flow of the, whatever we call that, the little swoosh or wave that goes through the Wilmington, I don't know what we call that, label, moniker. Anyway, my vote will be for Skyline for those reasons. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Reinbach?
Well,
I'm sorry.
jump right in. On page 9 of the handout we got, it pretty much, I mean, on the front of the building where our citizenry would be entering, and it's the main entrance, it clearly says Wilmington City Hall. And then on the picture at the top, that's the one that always appeals to me, whether it ends up being just Wilmington or the city of Wilmington or whatever. That's the one that pops. That really speaks to what it is. I mean, you can see that for a long ways off. That's Wilmington. That's our building. But on the monument sign down below the Skyline building, I think it kind of answers, kind of solves both of our wishes. You know, it can be called the Skyline building, but there's no mistake about it. That's where the city admin offices are. So I just think it needs kind of some of its own identity, because we're not going to be the only people in it. We're relying on some other people to come and be a part of it and help us pay for it.
Anybody else?
Tony, we covered this a little bit last time, but I also love the Wilmington logo at the top of the building. But could we suppose, wonder of wonders, you know, you get somebody takes several floors. We could put another sign on the other side or somewhere for them to appease them, or would that have to come back through some kind of sign code situation?
I can tell you what we can do practically. Chad can give us a little more information what we can do under the zoning ordinance. So I'm going to let Chad come forward and answer that question for us.
Go ahead, Ms.
I know when there was an issue at Mayfair with everybody buying, you know, building the 5- and 6-story floors, and the floors were condoed, and each individual wanted some signage, and we adjusted our ordinance to handle that. So,
just a refresher from the last meeting. Right now, there's an 800 square foot cap on all exterior signs, square footage for the building. What we're trying to do is develop a land development code amendment that would preclude, I guess, governmental related signs on that building. So the 800 potentially could be available for the tenants that you referenced, Mr. Anderson, but obviously that's got to go through the process of consideration and approval.
Well, I do think, you know, this is just personally, I mean, this building is a little different from those Mayfair mid-rise buildings. I won't be here to make this policy, but I would like to think that we don't want a dozen signs up there. So, you know, come up with some kind of policy for so many square feet before you even get to entertain that request. Sure. I mean, the commercial real estate people will know the answers to that too. You know, they know what it takes in other communities, I'm sure, but no, I was just curious because, you know, it may never come to pass, but, you know, if you had somebody, you were so fortunate to get somebody who want to take most of the rest of the floors, I think we'd have to certainly consider it. Thank you.
Sains?
Well, like Neil, I guess we'll just rehash what we said last time, but I feel like the taxpayers have paid for this, and we should recognize it. In addition to the sign that says City Hall, it should be City something, City Center. And at the beginning, I agreed with Neil that it's not in the center of the city, but if you look up the synonyms for center, it certainly meets that it could be City Center or City Plaza. I guess tonight what we're deciding on is between City Plaza and just the word Skyline. which if you look up the definition of skyline, there are two definitions. One is outline and one is horizon. I would just hope that we perhaps would give the citizens credit for making such a bold move, even though it saved $53 million by doing this. So I would like to see it named City Plaza, and if there are no other comments, I'll make that motion that we name it City Plaza. Is that what we're supposed to do?
Anybody else want to chime in?
I mean, I don't know how you want to do it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Waddell.
For the surrounding parcels, is there a possibility that whoever ends up purchasing those could build up, maybe not to that height, but could go over kind of the height limitations that we have in the rest of the city?
Yes.
The way the zoning regulations work downtown, the encouragement for the height and density was further north away from the historic district, and so yes, there would be an availability for both height and density in that area.
I think it's really important that we convey to anyone who may have interest in investing and building in this area what we want to see. And to that, and I realize this is very subjective, and this is difficult, it's very subjective, but it is important, and I think we want to see buildings of that caliber go up there. You know, you look 15, 20, 30 years long after we're all gone, it should be the skyline of the city. So, yeah, I think we've all thought about it long and hard, and there's been some intense discussions, some that I've been part of, and some that just the naming committee has been a part of, and appreciate your work. But just to convey to the public and to anyone who's looking to invest in that area what we would like to see, I think the skyline will outlast that and is the right way to move forward.
All right. All right, so the two proposals are for City Plaza and Skyline. So who has a motion to?
Yeah, it's got to have something. I'm with you, Neil. It can't just be skyline. It has to be skyline
It would be Skyline Building,
building.
is what I understand.
How about Skyline Center or something? I mean, it's not really a tower, you know. You would just want skyline.
It's going to be City Hall over the front door, but, and our logo on the top, so,
You know, I like Skyline. I do. But you know what, Margaret? You make a pretty good case about Skyline Center as well. That kind of rolls off of the tongue. Skyline Center. I agree, it just can't be Skyline. But Skyline Center does have a ring to it. And since my office will be there, I love telling people to meet me at the Skyline Center.
You want to do it that way? Skyline Center?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for Skyline Center.
Go ahead, okay, Kevin. And then second by Councilmember Waddell. So the name that we are voting on at this time is Skyline Center, correct? If we could go let's go T-H-E-E. No, I'm just joking. Skyline Center.
You can always call it the Skyline Center, but.
Skyline Center is, okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Waddell. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that item passes 6-1. So it will be now Skyline Center. I actually like that. Okay. This concludes the regular agenda. Are there any items to be brought forward by our city attorney? City manager?
No, sir.
Madam Clerk? Kevin, I'm going to start with you tonight since you've been reelected.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Let me say, I am glad. Am I glad to be back? I'm glad to be back. I am glad to be back. I'm not fresh off of vacation, but I did keep my word. I went on vacation. It was a beautiful vacation. It rained, but I wasn't in Wilmington, so it was beautiful to me. I want to thank the citizens of Wilmington for re-electing me. Wow, amazing. Such an amazing night. Really, really proud to serve my community for 4 more years and look forward to all of the great things that we can do sitting here serving the great city of Wilmington that could be greater. So let's do work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rivenbark. Mr. Barnett?
A lady who passed, she was a historian, and her funeral will be Thursday at 11 o'clock at St. Stephen's. And she was also a relative of folks who were involved in 1898. And so we just want to remember her, as well as, I remember reading something that said that if you don't tell your history, when you die, you carry it with you. That's true. And she was one who shared her history, and we're going to miss her, and we just wish the family their blessings.
Miss Cynthia Brown.
Cynthia Brown. Thank you, Miss Cynthia Brown.
What else? So I'm going to go to you, Neil, first, and then I'm going to finish it up with Margaret here.
Well, you know, I started making a list back during the campaign of all this stuff. That's a poor word. All the things we've accomplished, all the things we've done in the last 12 years, and it is way too long to even start with and finish with. I mean, I really think, in a lot of ways, we'll look back on the decade, despite the challenges of coming out of a Great Recession, having one of our, maybe since Hazel or the back-to-back hurricanes, certainly a major hurricane, and a world pandemic. And I still think it's really the renaissance of this city. I think what's happened downtown, we kept getting it kind of to the precipice and falling back, and it's pushed it over and then some. I think of all the parks, and again, this is way too long a list. It's really, I guess what I would just say is I'm just super proud of what this council and all the councils I've served on have accomplished in the last 12 years. And it has been an honor and a pleasure to serve the citizens of Wilmington. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since it is my last meeting, I just really wanted to take this opportunity to thank the public, really, for your support for this past decade. And while sometimes it is very challenging to serve, it is also can be very rewarding. It's really interesting and surprising how many people actually watch our meetings on GOTV. So for those of you who don't come and won't be here next week, I just wanted to express my gratitude and my appreciation for all of the support. The positive support certainly outweighs any negative ramifications. And I have always said that I believe that public service, government, and politics are both honorable, and I would just encourage other people to become involved in your local government. And thanks again for everybody's support.
Well, again, I just want to say on behalf of the citizens, this community, thank you for also giving me an opportunity to serve for another 2 years. It is an honor to work for you, but it's also an honor to work with the individuals that I have up here at this dais with me, because I see the amount of time and effort and dedication that they put into their jobs in serving you, this community. To Neil and Margaret, it has been a tremendous run and a tremendous ride, all of us. We've obviously, when you have 7 people up here, you're going to have different opinions, different debate, but that means people are thinking, and at the end of the day, we end up with better public policy because we're all thinking and bringing ideas and opinions from different perspectives, and that's extremely important to us and to this community. And I just want to say thank you again, because we took on some pretty tough projects that people thought we couldn't get done in a million years. And I would leave you with this. We put up the baseball stadium for a vote to this community, and of course, it was met with significant defeat, to say the least. Thought it was a great opportunity and deal for us and the Braves to be able to do something phenomenal downtown. But this council did not shy away from that defeat. What they did, I believe, was snatch victory from the defeats of, from the jaws of defeat by purchasing that property, because we all felt that that property should be in the public realm, not in the private realm, but that all the community should be able to use it and enjoy it. And we put together something and put it back out to the people for a vote, and they said yes, 2-1. And that was something that I didn't think would happen. And now we look at what's happening in the Northern Riverfront, but we also look at what's happening in the revitalization of downtown Wilmington and other places, talking about affordable housing, talking about transportation. Yes, the demands on us are tremendous, but y'all met them with grace and determination. And I just want to say thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with each one of you. And as I've always said, it's not about I, it's about we. And we can't do it if we don't work together. And this community has benefited dramatically because of the working relationship that this council's had over the years. Although we might have our differences, and that's good, but at the end of the day, we do come together and make some tough decisions for all of us. And I just want to say thank you for your public service to this great community. With that, thank you for taking interest in your government. We stand adjourned.